Hello, and welcome to Living Legacies of the Ozarks, where we hope to preserve the legacy and the culture of our Ozarks region and share it with you. My name is Hayden Head, and I'm happy to introduce to you my co-host, Sue Head, my much better half, I might say. And Sue, we are in a place of legacy, the Star Schoolhouse.
We are located on the campus of College of the Ozarks, and we are so excited today to have one of our alumni who lives in the Ozarks, who loves on kids as a teacher, and I'd like to introduce Miss Casey Chambers.
Hey, Casey.
Well, hello. Thank you guys for having me.
We're so glad you're here. I mean, you should feel right at home here in the Star Schoolhouse.
I know. I kind of feel like being a school marm back in the old days.
That's right.
I know. They've even got a schedule for a typical day. I'm ready to go.
Good, good.
Well, one of the legacy values here in this area is hospitality. And Casey, I think you have a story about how some of your students demonstrated hospitality to a new student in their class.
This is true. So I'm one of the rare, truly born and bred in the Branson area. I'm actually a product of Solar City. My mom was a musician. My dad was a street performer, train robber, and they settled down here in the late 70s. And so I actually was born, raised, went to Branson schools, kindergarten through senior year, and then came here to College of the Ozarks, and then eventually started teaching in Branson. So I am truly local, which not very many people can say.
Yeah, I think I'm sitting next to one of your professors from
Yes, you are one of my favorite teachers.
Well, you're so kind to say that. I remember you well in class. And how long have you been teaching now?
This is going to be year 19.
Year 19 in Branson Intermediate. Is that right? Yeah.
So I taught 9 years of 5th grade, and this will be my 10th year of 6th grade.
Wow.
So that is the perfect age.
That you'll leave a legacy for sure. I'm sorry, Sue, you were going to ask?
No, I was going to say that one of the legacy values in our community is hospitality. And Casey, I think you have a story about how some of your students demonstrated hospitality to a new classmate.
I do. So one of the things I really pride myself as a teacher is creating that environment from the very first day that I want this to be a safe classroom. I want this to be a place where we really exemplify what a fresh start, clean slate looks like. So on usually day 1 or day 2, I make this little speech about, I don't care who you are. I don't care about what things you've done in the past. I don't care what your record says. When other teachers want to show, look at my list and tell me all the things that are warnings, I don't want to hear those things because I think everybody truly deserves that fresh start, clean slate. And so, I kind of give examples, like if you were suspended 17 times last year, I don't need to know. I want you to truly have that fresh start in this classroom, and I want this to be a safe place that we can do that together. And just kind of on a sidebar, I had a student a few years ago. It was about 3/4 of the way into the class. I mean, he was ornery. We laughed a lot, but he kind of shyly came up to me and shared. He's like, I just wanted to tell you. He's like, you kind of gave that speech at the beginning. He's like, I was suspended 8 times last year. And I said, oh my goodness, I had no idea. But he's like, I really just kind of thought about that. And he's like, she doesn't know. And so he was allowing himself to feel that hope and the hospitality of that classroom setting to grow and just kind of be the best version of himself. And he's continued that on as he's now, I think, in the middle of high school. Mm-hmm. So in this one case that I'm thinking of, especially for hope and hospitality, I had a really sweet classroom that had they were a good community. We sang together every Friday, sea shanties, because every class is different. You've got to kind of just roll with it. But there was a scenario of a student that desperately needed that opportunity to have that fresh start, clean slate. And I remember seeing this student. He was not in my class at the time, and he was struggling just with academics, and he just needed somewhere fresh to start. And I remember seeing him in the hallway, and it was just like this moment where I would look at him and think, I just feel like he's supposed to be in my classroom. So things kind of progressed, and it was about 1/4 of the way through the school year. And my principals called me down to the office one day, and they were trying to just get me to think about the perspective, okay, I know we're going to ask you to do something really challenging. And as soon as they said this child's name, I said, yes, absolutely. And they were very surprised. Because it's not always the ideal situation to put a new student in a classroom, midway through the year. But I just had this feeling that this child was supposed to be in that room. So I was then able to sit down and have a conversation with my class, because it can be very disruptive when you have somebody new coming in, because they also were aware of a lot of the situations. And I just remember telling them, remember the first days of school. I gave you each the opportunity to have that fresh start, clean slate, that hope, the willingness and ability to give yourself grace. That imagine if you were struggling and you were having a hard time, what it would mean to you to be able to be transplanted into a special classroom like this, to feel safe, to have that fresh start. And it's like they just embodied that. They embodied hospitality as sweet little sixth graders can be, and they can be not very sweet as well. But this class just rallied around this kid. And so he started in that classroom, and it was one of the most beautiful things I've witnessed as a teacher. They rallied around him, they encouraged him. And I got to see this kid absolutely flourish. And I got to see that he had talents that he'd never shared, like drawing and artistry. And when I could see that maybe he was having a hard day, I would just, could you draw a picture of this? I'm a huge Chiefs fan. So I'm like, could you think he could draw, Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce? And he would spend all day crafting the most beautiful sketches. And it was like I tapped into something that maybe nobody had noticed before. And I think, in my whole career, he'll be one of those that stands out as just somebody that truly got to have that fresh start, clean slate, and just how life-changing it was.
I love that story, Casey.
It's one of my favorites.
It reminds me in a way of the founder of College of the Ozarks when he came here and he walked these hills till his shoe leather was worn through. And when he wrote back and had this idea of the school, he said, these people deserve a chance. Yeah. And that's exactly what you were doing.
I was trying.
In your classroom. He would be so proud.
What I loved especially is that me just prompting that to these 25 other students, that they got to embody that. And they got to experience what that hospitality looked like. And they got to be that. And it was almost like seeing the things, you say things as a teacher and you just hope that maybe they take an ounce of it. It felt like for the first time, not the first time, it just felt like they really grasped it and then they modeled it. So that he was able to, his grades turned around and his behavior absolutely turned around. He was a different kid.
You passed on the idea of legacy from yourself to them. So you're right that they could own it. And then who knows what other areas of their life they'll take that same grace into. And it's really remarkable. It is the stone dropped in a pond and letting the ripples
that
go
ripple
out.
Effect.
And I wondered, Casey, as you were talking about your story, where did you get sort of your philosophy of teaching? Where did you get that idea of everybody wants a clean slate, right?
Absolutely.
Everybody wants a fresh start. Who among us can say that they've always done it perfectly?
Absolutely.
That would be no one. So where did you get the idea that you wanted your classroom to embody that kind of grace?
I don't know. I just think, and sometimes I have to remind students and myself that sometimes we need the fresh start, clean slate after recess. Like maybe it's every day where they've had a rough morning and I say, hey, you know what? After recess, after lunch, let's just start fresh. Because I've also learned when you back a kid or anybody up into a corner, you're going to see some of the worst behaviors because they're just lashing out to just survive. And you see those behaviors. And I think as teachers and as individuals, we can keep kind of pushing and poking the bear. And you're never going to be, you're never going to see what you want out of that. So I think for me, a lot of that was my experiences just growing up here in Branson, different teachers, you were one of them as well, who spoke to students like they were true beings and not just as just names on a list, making you feel known. And I don't know, I have so many teachers that I've looked to as that, and I just wanted to embody that as a teacher. So what I've really been able to do, and hopefully the kids see this too, is that building relationships, it's going to change everything. And when kids truly feel seen and heard, you can get anything out of them.
So beautiful. Encouraging. Fresh start, clean slate.
Yeah, absolutely.
Love
Now that is a great story. Thank you so much. And we're just so happy to share it with you. And we hope that gives you some sense of the kind of hope in hospitality, that Casey uses in her classroom, but that we hope that Branson brings to all of its guests as well. And just like her class can take that same grace to others, we hope you'll take it with you too. Thank you so much.
Living Legacies of the Ozarks is sponsored by Ozark Mountain Legacy,